Hey folks, today's episode is all about Disney's Candlelight Processional. This episode was recorded a couple of weeks ago before some new information was available, so I wanted to take this moment before the show to update a few comments made during this episode. We now know that this year's surprise narrator at Disneyland Park was Lin-Manuel Miranda. Of course, Miranda has a good relationship with Disney as a songwriter for Moana, star of Mary Poppins Returns, and more. Over at Walt Disney World, a couple of the previously announced narrators we discussed for this year have since changed. Cheetah Rivera and Warwick Davis have been removed from the list of Epcot narrators and have since been replaced by Alton Fitzgerald White and Gina Davis. I hope you enjoy this episode about a wonderful holiday tradition at both the Disneyland and Walt Disney World resorts. Now on with the show.
Is your magic meter running low? Well, we've got a cure for you. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and today on the show I have my buddy Ruben joining me. Hello, Ruben.
Hello, everybody on the internet.
So Ruben is a longtime listener of the show, a longtime friend because of listening to the show and because of mutual friends, and a longtime requested guest co-host, and you are finally here.
Yes, I apologize for the delay.
You worked up the nerve to come here.
Today's topic I'm very passionate about, and I felt like if I heard somebody else do it, I would feel bad that I didn't get to do it. So here I am.
I love it. So today we are talking about Disney's Candlelight Processional, which is a long-running tradition in the Disney parks, both at Walt Disney World and Disneyland. So we're going to be talking about the history, but also Ruben's experience performing in the Candlelight Processional. So let's jump into that conversation right now.
It's time to dive into today's Disney dialogue.
Alrighty, so I just want to start off with kind of a description of what the Candlelight Processional is, just in case people aren't aware of this, because especially here on the West Coast, it is not like a month-long thing like it is at Walt Disney World. So just in case people aren't familiar with it, why don't you describe the Epcot version of the processional?
Okay, so it's a beautiful event at Epcot during the Festival of the Holidays. They do 3 shows a night. Starting this last year, they started doing it on Thanksgiving, which is pretty amazing. But there's an orchestra on stage. They're tuning up, and then they start performing the overture, so to speak, of a bunch of different Christmas carols. And then when that's through, the singers process in as what is the Candlelight Processional. And then we all process onto stage, and then we start singing more Christmas carols, and then the celebrity narrator comes about. And basically the whole show is a reading of Bible scripture of the birth of Jesus Christ. So it's really beautiful. In between each passage, there is also beautiful Christmas carols, fantastic music, full 50-piece symphony orchestra. It's just such a wonderful festive event. I love it so much. There's so many people who love it. And yeah, I don't know what else to say from the top of my head.
I just noticed that you were wearing a Candlelight Processional hoodie with your name on it. Hello.
Yeah,
I love
so
that.
last year was the 60th anniversary of the processional. And so they decided, as the cast choir, they'd have these hoodies made for us. We had to order it, of course, but they had them made for us. And if you wanted one, you just ordered it. And so I decided it's a anniversary year. Let me go get one. So I got one, and it's cold today, so I'm wearing it.
Very cool. So here at Disneyland, it is a bit different, where the word processional in Candlelight Processional really means more, I would say, here at Disneyland.
Oh,
Whereas
for sure.
At Epcot, it's a very short processional, basically just to get to the stage. But here at Disneyland, for the most part, it's basically the parade route. So it starts down by It's a Small World, goes through the entire park, up Main Street, USA, to the railroad station, which is where the performance happens. And as you said, it's the story of Christ with a full-piece orchestra and, an amazing choir and a celebrity narrator that's invited to read the scripture and stuff. And, religious or not, it's just an inspirational event, and it's really wonderful, and it's been going on for a long time. So let's jump into a bit of the history, because it officially began in 1958 at Disneyland. There were things before that kind of led up to the Candlelight Processional, but I find just this fact interesting in and of itself. 1958, which means Walt Disney was involved with the Candlelight Processional, which I don't know if a lot of people realize. Like, it's kind of incredible to think it goes back that far.
Yes. In my research, I found that it really was when the park first opened, he really wanted Christmas carolers in the park. And then there was this man, his name was Dr. Charles C. Hurt of the University of South California, I believe. And he provided the Dickens carolers for the park. And it just kind of evolved from there.
Yeah, so it started as Dickens carolers, then they started bringing in local school choirs. They unofficially called it the Christmas Bowl, and it took a place on the little bandstand gazebo that used to be in the park. And that was happening from like 55, 56, 57, and then in 58, that's when they had the first official Candlelight Processional in Disneyland Park, and it was comprised of 16 choirs at the time. And now at 58, 59, I think it was over by a Sleeping Beauty castle, because in 1960 is where that tradition began of the train station, which it's a real, you've never experienced it here, right?
No, I've only seen it online, so
okay,
it looks pretty tight.
It is. It's a hassle. I mean, Disneyland in general is a lot smaller than Magic Kingdom. Mm-hmm. So put a big performance there with a lot of chairs and a lot of people standing around watching it. Like, if you think watching the fireworks can get crowded, no. Like, the Candlelight Processional, it gets really, really insanely crowded. And I have been lucky enough to experience it. And actually, fun little tangent story here. I was at Disneyland, this was years ago, probably like a decade at this point, and I did not have tickets. I did not have a seat to the Candlelight Processional because they have dinner packages and stuff that will get you seats. And I just asked a cast member, I was like, listen, I don't have tickets. Where should I hang out? How long should I hang out to get a decent view of the show tonight? And this cast member, whose name I forget, sadly, was like, just wait here for a minute. And she went away and came back like 4 minutes later with 2 tickets.
Oh my gosh.
With seats for that night.
It's like a Christmas miracle.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, and it was a pretty special moment, and it was lovely. So in any case, the train station is a beautiful setting for it. Unfortunately, just the logistics, it's difficult, to say the least. So that may be part of the reason why Disneyland does a much shorter run, but we'll get into all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But in any case, in 1960, that's when it went to Town Square and really started becoming what it is today at Disneyland. And that first year at the train station, I believe, was actor Dennis Morgan was the celebrity narrator from the film Christmas in Connecticut. Honestly, I'm not super familiar.
Oh, I just watched that last night.
Did you really? I've never seen it.
Well, Albert was watching it, but...
Was it good?
Yeah, I've seen it before. It's really cute. Very fun, like rom-com from the 40s or 50s.
Okay. You know what I watched last night and I hated, and I will be talking about this on a future episode of Disney Coast to Coast. Actually, it might be, you'll have heard this already, actually, because of the order they're being released. But I saw Babes in Toyland last night, which is falsely advertised as a Christmas movie because it's really not. And oh gosh, is it hard to sit through.
It's long, right? Or it just feels
not that long. It's like an hour and 45 minutes. Pretty typical, but really not interesting.
Yeah, it's been decades since I've seen it, so I don't really remember.
It was rough. But in any case, like I said, you'll probably heard me talk about that already. So in any case, actor Dennis Morgan was there to read the biblical story between the classical hymns. And in future years, I mean, they got heavy hitter names. We got names like Cary Grant, John Wayne, Henry Fonda, Jimmy Stewart, Gregory Peck, Charlton Heston, James Earl Jones, Olympia Dukakis, and many, 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 many more.
I have a fun one that I found in my research.
Was this Disneyland or Walt Disney World?
In Disneyland. So
let's hear it.
Dennis Morgan did it continually through 1966 since they first started doing it, except in 1965 they got Dick Van Dyke because they wanted to promote Mary Poppins. I'm like, pretty
nice.
Cool.
Nice. I'm sure he must have done it again since then.
Yeah,
right?
I'm pretty sure. It seems like a lot of the Disneyland ones did it multiple times.
Yeah,
as
cool.
Walt Disney World ones as well. So
the chorus makes up what they call a living Christmas tree, where they basically have risers that are wider at the bottom and then go up to the top with just one person at the top, and it looks like a Christmas tree as they're all in their green robes. And from 1960 to 1981, this living Christmas tree choir was made up of the Western High School a cappella choir. And then it was in 1982, so 37 years ago, that the Disney Employee Choir, or the Disney Cast Member Choir, became the tradition for the Candlelight Processional, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I also read it's not just like Disneyland employees, it's cast members from the studios and from Imagineering, which is really cool. Like it really involves everybody in the company.
Yeah, if you're a cast member of any sort, it sounds like you are able to audition for this. So that's pretty cool. And another thing that maybe people will find surprising, but Walt Disney World has always had the Candlelight Processional. It started its opening year in 1971, but it started at Magic Kingdom, which I was unaware of. Did you know this?
Yeah, I didn't know until I was researching for this episode that it started there and then it moved. Well, I guess that makes sense because Epcot wasn't
Oh
around
yeah, Epcot
until,
wouldn't have been around.
but
Duh.
but
But
yeah,
yeah,
like it's just such an Epcot thing to us these days. It's hard to imagine it in another park on this coast.
but also even, obviously Epcot came around in 1982, but I just was surprised to hear it was there since opening year. I don't know why I'm
Oh
so
yeah.
surprised, but it was, I don't know, it didn't seem, this is just such a long tradition. It's so much bigger and longer than I think most people realize. It's quite amazing. So 1971 Magic Kingdom, 1994 it moves to Epcot. And, originally this was the Candlelit Carolers, originally singing a cappella, I believe, and then eventually it became this whole classical concert with the fanfare and everything, right?
Yeah, you got that right.
So yeah, so that's basically the history. I do want to jump into the choir experience
Yes,
here
of
because
course, of course.
one thing is everyone is a volunteer.
Yes, that is correct.
So these are Disney cast members working their normal day jobs, volunteering to become part of this choir. And before we jump into that, how many times have you done it now? How many times have you been part of the choir?
Well, I've done it for 3 years. So I've been with the company almost 8, but with my schedule, it was just always difficult to find the time to do it. But 2016, 2017, 2018, I was able to do it. And doing at least, I want to say 5 or 6 shows a season. So
Okay. I want to get into all those details of how that works, but
Yeah.
I'm curious. You said, making the schedule work. Is this something where, like, if you audition and you become part of it, are your bosses in your individual departments kind of like told, hey, let them work this out, rework their schedule if at all possible, sort of thing? Or is it kind of like your responsibility?
yeah, basically the latter. It is our responsibility to make sure we have the time on our time off to do the rehearsals, to get to the shows. And then it's up to your leader or your manager to, help you out on that. Like they don't have to, they're not by any means obligated. Like they have to attend to working at Disney, of course. But usually, like say there's a conflict, like sometimes working. So I am a pastry chef, just want to let you guys know, at Walt Disney World. And sometimes we have to stay a little bit overtime based on business needs because it just gets a little bit busier. And sometimes you can talk to your leader and then they'll work with you and trying to get you to Epcot when you need to, making sure you get out on time and things like that. But if anything, I would say management at Disney is very aware of this event and very much accommodating for their cast members. So.
That's cool. That's cool. So what is the audition process like and how early does it happen in the year?
So it actually starts way in July, it seems crazy, but like Christmas in July, it's time to get ready for a candlelight processional. And they do like to say, they don't like to call it an audition. They call it a selection process. That is because they don't want people intimidated.
Classic Disney.
It's all cast members from all lines of business from every different parts. Like when you go to rehearsal, you see where people are coming from because you can come in costume to rehearsal because like people are just getting off of work or maybe
Sure.
they're going in for a night shift later on. And so it's just really impressive to see where everybody comes from. But they know that. So they know not everybody's a professional singer, but they know people have had experience with music. And they call it a selection process because they're selecting from the people who are coming like to sign up and do it. The people who are really aware of like musical ability and who can be, I don't want to say trained because they're not there to train you to be a good singer, but could be like work as a choir, work as one solid blend of voices, so to speak.
I want to see Joe Rohde audition so badly.
That would be really cool.
His earring could be the star on the top of the tree.
That would be amazing.
It would be amazing.
I don't know if they would let him though, because like to be the star, because the star is usually a really short person. All the tall people are at the bottom of the tree. So
I'm pretty sure they'd make
an exception.
Yeah, I think they'd make an exception if Joe Rohde was like, "This year I'm going to audition for the Candlelight Choir." I think they'd be like, "Alrighty, Star on top. I love it. I want to see that happen. Okay, so the the selection process is way back in July.
Yes.
So how long is the rehearsal? Actually, how long does it take for you to hear whether or not you've been selected?
So
and then how long is the actual
I want to
rehearsal
say
process?
the process for like getting everybody in who wants to try out takes probably about 2 or 3 weeks. I forget exactly. And then usually by mid-August, everybody finds out regardless if they got in or if they didn't get in. And then starting very early September, that's when the first set of rehearsals begin. So it's just full speed ahead right after everybody's selected. So pretty cool.
Okay, so I'm going to assume there's a bunch of rehearsals and you have to attend a certain amount of them, or how does that work?
Yes. So if it's your first year, I believe you have to do a minimum of 10 rehearsals, and a certain percentage of them have to be with your voice group. So for those of you familiar with singing in a choir, there's soprano and alto for the women, and then tenors, basses, baritones for the men. And then when you're auditioning, usually you should come in knowing what your voice part is. I do have a fun story later about my first one, but we can get into that.
No, let me tell it now.
Okay, so my first selection process, was in 2016. I was super, super nervous. I was terrified, but I knew this is something I'd always wanted to do with the company. So like I loved going as a guest on my off time, of course, and just seeing the show and being a part of this Christmas celebration at Epcot. And so I wanted to try out. And I did everything that you did online. Like they give you the music, which is really great, the sheet music. They give you some other things to help you along, a lot of resources to really help you prepare. And I had never sung in a choir in my life, only in like grade school when you're like singing with all your classmates. That's the only experience I had. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just sing the melody and hope for the best. And so I go in there, we do a warm up with everybody, and everybody else knows what they're doing. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know my voice part. Am I singing the right part? I don't know what I'm doing. It was terrifying. I remember texting my brother and being like, I think I should leave. I think this was a mistake. I should just run. And he's like, no, just go in, see what happens. You really want to do this. He was really sweet, very supportive. And then I go into my selection process. And one of the Voices of Liberty is one of the like clinicians, people like, trying you out. His name was Dirk. He was amazing. Super nice. I told him up front, I'm like, I really don't know what I'm doing, but I want to try, which they appreciate. Like they appreciate that you try. And so he had me sing what I had prepared, which was wrong. It was basically the soprano part, which was way too high for me being a man. So then he like decided, okay, let's work together. He's like, I'm going to play you what you're supposed to sing. Then we're going to sing it together. And then I'm going to have the pianist, the accompanist play it by himself, and you're going to sing by yourself. And so we went through that, and he said, actually, that was really good. And I was shocked. I'm like, okay, I guess that was really good. But I told him, like, I do have experience playing piano and playing violin, so I do have an awareness of musical ability, so to speak. But yeah, it ended up going really well. I felt really good. I was glad I didn't run out screaming. And then a couple of weeks later, I found out that I got in. So it was pretty awesome. Kudos to
so that was the audition.
Yes, that was...
Or the selection.
The selection process, yes.
Okay, so you said you went. Okay, so you went into the selection process not knowing your voice type. I thought you meant like you were going to the first rehearsal not knowing. It was like they don't tell you.
No, you'll know once you get.
Okay.
Yeah, so the email will tell you you're placed in this section. So like if you know you're a tenor, you don't know if you're tenor 1 or tenor 2. So they're slightly different in the music. Tenor 1 can sing a little bit higher than a tenor 2, and I was a tenor 2, so that's how I knew. Okay, and then. The weeks leading up to rehearsal, then you prepare knowing your voice part. And then your first rehearsal, you should know what you're doing by then. So
cool.
So, yeah.
Very cool. So you had mentioned earlier, like in a year, you would do about 5 to 7 performances, and there are many performances. So when you say performances, you're counting that as like one night. I assume the 3 performances in one night is the same choir, correct?
So the way they break it down is you either do the first show or you do the last 2 shows. Just the way that the timing is, like to change out the choirs. There's more time between the first and the second than the second and the third. And so they call it the late pair, I believe. And you can sign up for the late pair or sign up for just the early one. And it just all depends on what you want to do, what your schedule's like, what's available. So usually, I think I mostly did late pairs just based on my work schedule. Like I wouldn't make it in time for check-in to get to the first show. So I usually did late pairs.
So that's interesting. So how does that work? Do you just have to submit availability and then they kind of place you on certain dates, or is it hey, pick these dates? Is it kind of like fast pass booking where, first come, first serve?
It basically is. Yeah. It's pretty simple. Everything's online. And then you just see the narrators that are available, the time slots that are available, the voice parts.
Oh, so you know who the celebrity will be?
Yeah. Well, they announce it, in July, and then the final announcements are like the week before it starts. Like I think one year it was like nobody knew who these last two narrators were going to be until like the week before. So even we don't know. Like the rehearsal people are always like, oh, people are always asking us, but we don't know ourselves. Like that's honest. We really don't know. But yeah, it'll be in the schedule online, and you can pick from the different late pairs or the early show what you want to do, and base if it's available too. So usually that's kind of like when that launches, people are like trying to be available to sign up for what they want. But the really nice thing that I really do appreciate on Disney's part is that they always make sure there's one show out of the whole season guaranteed that you get. So I forget what they call it, but it's like, say you have family coming in at a certain time of the season, or there's a certain narrator that you really want to sing with, or there's just a date that works ideally for you for your work schedule. They'll let you pick that first before opening everything up to everybody. So everybody gets a chance to pick the one show that they want to do. So it's really, really cool that they do that for us.
That's nice. So correct me if I'm wrong, but the center tree at Epcot, that's all cast members, and then there are two side choirs as well. Are those outside groups or those cast members as well?
You would be correct. So that's where all the high school groups come in from. There's also like local church groups that also make up that the side choirs, and they're all like the guest choirs is what we call them. So that gives people in the community and across the country, I believe as well, to come down and be a part of that. I don't know exactly how that process works, how they get selected, but it's nice that they expand it to the community, which is really great.
Yeah. Now, do you have a favorite memory from the years that you performed?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I know it was just a couple of years ago, but I guess we can get into my favorite narrators, I guess, if you want to talk about that.
Sure. I want to hear about your favorite celebrity narrator as well.
My favorite ones, I'll give you a list.
So these are ones that you've performed with.
Yes. And also saw, so one of them I didn't perform with. I only saw as a guest. That was Amy Grant. Really, really loved her because she just has the sweetest voice. She is a Christian contemporary artist, for those of you who don't know. She just really loves the story. She calls it the greatest story ever told before she begins reading the passages from the Bible. And she's just very soothing, it's just lovely. I don't know how else to describe it.
I don't feel okay mentioning Amy Grant on this show without mentioning our good friend Aaron Wallace.
Yes. I did see it with him, so.
Of course.
Yes.
No, Aaron, of course, has been on the show many, many times, and he is the biggest Amy Grant fan I know. In fact, he made me an Amy Grant mix CD and has given me her Christmas album. So he loves to spread the joy of her music.
He does.
I appreciate that about him. And in fact, funny story, this past summer, I think it was, I was at the Grammy Museum in Los Angeles, and I was there to see the Backstreet Boys exhibit. And I forget, I think Aaron saw on my Instagram story or something that I was there. And I get a text from him who's like, I hear Amy Grant's like leopard jacket is there somewhere. Take a picture and send it to me. And so I'm like, all right. So I literally, the security guard that's like next to me, I'm like, hey, where's Amy Grant's jacket? And he's like, right there. I was like standing right next to it as Aaron texted me that. So it was funny. But in any case, Amy Grant, one of your favorites.
And I'm not biased about it because Aaron's one of my great friends, but it's just, she really is a fantastic narrator for Candlelight. She hasn't done it in a couple years, but the next time she does, I'm definitely going to be there to see it. But after Amy Grant, I really loved, last year we had Auli'i Cravalho. I don't know if I said that right.
Auli'i Cravalho, who was the voice of Moana.
Yes, she was amazing because she is like sweetest soul. Again, just like Amy Grant, she has a very nice like storytelling voice, very Disney as well, and it just feels very calm and peaceful, especially with a story like the birth of Jesus Christ. She really delivered it really nicely, and she just also had, I don't remember exactly what she said, but her like closing comments were also very nice. After her, I really loved John Stamos. How can you not love John Stamos?
Who is not on the list this year, from what I saw?
Yeah, well, I noticed because I think it was last year, was his first time in a long time. And
really?
before that, I believe it was 2009 in Disneyland. I don't know.
Oh, I
might
didn't
be
realize
wrong.
that. I thought he was like an every year kind of guy, like Neil Patrick
Yes,
Harris.
I think I know Neil Patrick Harris, Stephen Curtis Chapman. They're like some of the regulars. Marley Matlin, I believe, as well. But John Stamos, I've my whole time living at Disney, I have only seen him the 1 year. So, but he was great because, as you all know, fans of this podcast do know that he's a really big fan of Disney, and it shows when he's there. And it's like it's very genuine when he's reading the story of Jesus Christ, being happy to be at Epcot. And every time I did 2 shows with him. And so the first time he ended it with the closing comments that were very touching. He was a new dad at the time. He still is a new dad. And just his comments were just so sweet. And he even choked up a little bit. And like, it was very sincere. And then the second show, he said essentially the same speech. And it was just beautiful. Like you can tell that this man was really in love with all of Disney, all of the experience of being a candlelight narrator. So that is what makes part of it really great. Doing this thing and being with them on stage and watching it as a guest. It's just, I just love it so much. It's so wonderful.
Yeah, now I do want to go back, if we can rewind time and go back to your first time performing the show. Were you kind of an emotional wreck? Because this is an emotional show. Like I said at the beginning, it doesn't matter what your faith is. I really think anybody seeing this show is going to be touched and probably get choked up. So, I mean, first time performing in it. Yes. Was it hard to sing at points?
Well, the first time I did it with Neil Patrick Harris, and I was super, super nervous because just being on stage is terrifying. And I never know what it felt like to have that many lights shining on you. At least you're part of a crowd, which is nice. That takes a little bit of the tension off, but like, I don't even know how to describe it. I don't know, Jeff, if you've performed on stage. You've performed on stage before, right? So like, you know, the feeling of like just having all eyes on you. And like, mostly that was the first part of the experience. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm here doing this thing. There's a celebrity in front of me. What am I doing with my life? But after that, as you mentioned, you kind of like lose yourself into the show. You get in touch with the music, you're singing the music, and you just really feel the power of the story of the birth of Jesus. And I'm, as a Catholic, like, it's very touching to me. It's very awesome to get the chance to share my faith with others, even if people there who are watching are not of any religious faith or anything. It's just really great to deliver that story and that message of Jesus.
I gotta say, I actually like the bright lights because the bright lights on stage allow you to really not be able to see the audience. So
that's true.
To me,
that's true.
It's like, I don't know, it's kind of like takes away the fear because you're just so blinded. But the lights on, you know, if you've never performed on stage before, they're brighter than you think.
Yes.
The first time you
don't
look
realize
out,
it until you're there.
Like,
and like,
oh yeah, it's very bright.
Of my list, this is my absolute favorite. Jim Caviezel, you know, the actor.
He played Jesus Christ.
He played Jesus, yes. So, and he is a Catholic. And I was just really touched by his performance because, like Amy Grant, he's very much Christian. He's a Catholic, loves sharing the story. And I could see in his notes, like everybody gets a binder with the script of the show with the Bible passages. And I could see he like added some notes for himself to like enhance what he's saying. So he really took the time to really think about what was being said to the audience, what messages he wanted to make clear. And on top of that, he was just really fun. Like he was dancing along to a lot of the songs. Rejoice with Exceeding Great Joy is probably the crowd favorite. It's very bouncy, very fun, and he's always dancing around. My favorite part was towards the end. We were all singing one of the final songs, and he just turned around and he's like, I love you, Tree. You guys have been behind me this whole night. I really love you guys. And it was kind of a pun at the same time because we're literally standing behind him. But he was just such a fun guy. And like, I would love to see him again. I've only seen him from the cast member point of view. I'd love to see him again from the guest point of view and see how it reads from the audience.
Now, the first time you're seeing these celebrities that you're performing with, is it the moment they step on stage, or they talk to you guys before you head out, or how does that work?
It depends on the celebrity. Sometimes, because we enter from backstage for the cast choir, and so we pass their dressing room, and sometimes the door is open and like they're waving to you. Sometimes they actually come out. Whoopi Goldberg is really great. She likes to come out and talk to the cast members before we go on stage, which is really nice. So, but typically, the majority of them, you see them on stage. So. which is cool in itself.
Cool. So did you have any other favorites that you performed
I
with?
think that's from my list. I think those are probably my top four. I could go on and on about everybody else, but like those really felt special. All of those shows felt very special.
Well, I do just want to talk about kind of the different. Obviously, you mentioned a pretty wide range of performers and celebrities, and there's way more than what we've mentioned. But they're all very different people with very different backgrounds, with
Yes.
very different ways of telling this story. So
That is very true, yes.
have you ever seen an epic fail? You probably can't answer that, but have you ever seen somebody like, oh, they're not getting invited back?
I don't think I've ever seen a performance like that. I would say maybe there were some that just, they did their job,
Yeah.
But like then there are those that exceeded expectations, so to speak. And so,
Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know, what makes them different, I guess? Like, what makes somebody really great versus somebody who's just doing their job?
I would say just because like these are passages from the Bible. I believe Jody Benson said it's from the book of Luke or maybe Matthew. I may be mixing that up. Don't quote me on that. But I think it's the way which they deliver the message, kind of like going back to Jim Caviezel. Like he highlighted things. He was like wanting to stress certain words to really get that message clear. Whereas some will just, read it like a story, which is fine too. Like to some of them, this is the story of Jesus Christ. So we'll read it like a story, which is nice. But for me, at least personally, I personally like it better when they get a little bit more in getting the message of Christmas across.
There seem to be moments where they are kind of allowed to ad-lib, for lack of a better term, or put their little touch on it. Is that just like at the beginning or the end, or is that
I'm
sometimes in the
not
middle?
quite sure the official rules, but in my experience performing and also watching the show, mostly the ad-libbing, or I guess like the things that they say from themselves, is the beginning or the end. And every now and then they'll be like during the readings, they might add something in. Like there is a story about Silent Night, which we can talk about later. But I know some of them play it a little differently. Some of them just read it straight, just like this is a story about how Silent Night was written. And then some of them will like do voices. I know Whoopi Goldberg and Jim Caviezel like to do a little bit of acting, so to speak, with that story, which is really fun. But I would say for the most part, they pretty much stick to the script, or they're just reacting. Like sometimes after a really powerful number, they'll just be like flabbergasted because like they're right in the middle of it and they're just like, that was great, right? And then like the crowd is loving it. And so it's just like a natural response to what's going on. So.
That's cool. That's awesome. Now, obviously, we've been talking a lot about religion in a Disney theme park, and This is a tradition that's been going on since 1958. And times are very different now than they were in 1958. And, separation of religion and state, political correctness, and a lot of just controversial stuff, to the point that to me it is shocking that this still exists in the way that it does. Because as much as I say that this is for, even if you're not a religious person, this is something that you'll enjoy, it is very much, it's kind of like going to a mass, like, honestly. So how do you think this has survived through the years?
I think part of it, like at least for Epcot, it's like Epcot's all about sharing world culture, sharing other people's ways of life. And I think Christmas, to a large majority of people in the world, is all about Jesus Christ. And I think it would be a disservice to all of those people. It would be like excluding them from the celebration of Christmas if you don't like at least discuss the story of Jesus's birth in a place like Epcot, where you're really discussing and really presenting cultures like all over the place. Like one example I was thinking, they have the holidays around the world. So they have all the different narrators from different countries, like they're representing different things from different elements of the winter season for those cultures. And like there is a narrator, they're representing the Jewish culture, and they're talking about what they do to celebrate this season of Hanukkah and all of that. And they share everything. They talk everything about the religion. I'm not fully aware of it. I grew up with friends who are Jewish, so I learned a little bit about what Hanukkah's like. But then that narrator is there to talk really like, this is what they do. This is what it represents. And I think it's only fair that you still continue that with Christmas celebrations for those who are Christian, those who are Catholic, those who celebrate Jesus Christ. So I think, for me at least, that's how I read it, that's how it's continued to survive, because it wouldn't be right to just suddenly dash everything about Christmas to most people when you're celebrating this season.
That theory about having it at Epcot, I'd honestly never thought about, and makes a ton of sense to me. So, I mean, maybe the question then is, how is it still at Disneyland? But that's a really interesting theory that I'd honestly never heard before or thought about. So I like that. It is maybe a little surprising at how popular it is, to the point that there's 3 shows a night for over a month long. I think it's over a month long, right?
They extended it last year by adding Thanksgiving into that mix, where before they would wait until December and start doing the shows. I think like part of it too, outside of celebrating Jesus's birth, it's also just, as you said, when we were starting the show, it's such an inspiring, such a joyous show. It's just a fun celebration of Christmas, even if you're not entirely religious. Like those Christmas carols we still grew up with, the story we still grew up with. It's still just great to celebrate that in itself. And just also a lot of people like to go to see the celebrities. Like, I'll be honest, people want to go and see Neil Patrick Harris talking about Jesus and singing along and stuff like that. So pretty cool.
You know, I did have that question for you. Do you think this show would be as popular without the celebrities? Because I got to be honest, the appeal to me really isn't the celebrity. Here at Disneyland, it's very different. It's not a scheduled celebrity. It's kind of like, we know the Candlelight Processional is happening that first weekend in December, but we do not have anybody scheduled. It's a surprise. So people are showing up for the ceremony. Sure, some might be like, ooh, let's see who it is. But to be honest, like, locals here in Southern California just don't get nearly as excited about celebrities since we live near Hollywood. But in Epcot, do you think that, you know, say they were just like, hey, we're getting rid of the celebrity, it's just going to be like a generic cast member doing the narration. Do you still think it's 3 shows a night for a month long?
I really don't know, actually. It's hard to like guess about that, just because this is how it's been since it started, at least in Walt Disney World, at least. I don't know. I would say, sure, there will be a percentage of the population going to the parks who will be upset that there's no celebrity narrator and probably won't come at all. But I would still think people would want to celebrate Christmas and celebrate all of the carols and all of that still, even without a celebrity narrator. Jesus is the celebrity.
Yeah, I think that their celebrity is just kind of a bonus. I really don't think that they're that necessary. And although I do want to mention, I know that there were some, as far as this whole, you know, religious thing going on in the park, 2012, 2013, they made some cuts that got a bit controversial. What was this about?
Okay, so in 2012, that's when they added the story of Silent Night. So for those who've seen the show before, that's the part where they talk about Father Joseph Moore. He was an Austrian, I believe, priest, and he went to his organist to prepare for the Christmas Mass, and the organist said, oh, the organ is broken. Well, we're not going to have music for the Christmas Mass, and he was inspired to write Silent Night from that whole event. So they added that in 2012, and that came in the spot where this poem called, or this essay is what we like to say, of One Solitary Life was. And but that year they still had One Solitary Life. So the Silent Night story preceded Silent Night. And then after that came One Solitary Life, which came before Joy to the World. I don't remember what was in that place before, since they moved it. But it was great, like very inspiring. If anything, I feel One Solitary Life was more effective being followed by Joy to the World. Then in 2013 comes along, story of Silent Night is still there, and then One Solitary Life is gone and replaced with a much shorter passage with a different, well, I wouldn't say different, but the effect of that passage preceding Joy to the World is, in my opinion, is not as powerful as One Solitary Life was. So
there was some reaction to that, right?
Yeah, I think, at least online, I saw in my research that there were a lot of people who were upset about it. I wasn't in the choir then, so I don't know how cast members reacted. I was just seeing it as a guest. I know from a guest point of view, there were a lot of people who were upset that it was gone. But I think the controversy about it, as you mentioned, was a lot of people think it was cut for religious reasons because it was getting too religious. But my argument with that is, if anything, the One Solitary Life is probably the least religious part of the entire show, because most of the show, it's all Christmas carols about Jesus, all Christmas carols that are praising Jesus, Bible passages from the Bible. And One Solitary Life, while it was written, I think, by a pastor, I forget his name, it's escaping me, but it was a sermon, but then it was created into a poem and then into an essay. And it's very much about Jesus from a historical point of view. It's not so much about what he preached. It's not about what he did. It was just kind of commenting on, I don't want to say commenting because these were all facts. It's facts about Jesus that really stated his impact on the world.
I really doubt it was cut because of religious reasons. My guess is that they added something new. They found that having both made it too long, and they're like, we need to make a cut somewhere. Where's it going to be? And for some reason, that was the chosen thing. I really doubt it was because that passage is what made it too religious, quote unquote. So it was probably a time thing. Listen, they're doing 3 shows a night.
Yes, and that was the official Disney response, was it was cut for time, which now having done the show and experiencing it, I can see why, because it is quite long, but it's a shame because it's so moving and so powerful. Even if you're not religious, if anything, it opens your eyes as to the effect of Jesus on people and why people are really being Christian, why they believe in Jesus Christ. And even though if you don't believe it, you can see why, you can see why we're celebrating Christmas to begin with.
And just to wrap up this conversation about the controversy, I want to add that actor Howard Keel, who narrated the ceremony at both Disneyland and Walt Disney World in the 1980s, put it best when he said, "I've never been a very religious person. When you stand up there for all of those people with that incredible chorus and orchestra beside you, it's a wonderfully moving experience. In fact, I was so moved I could hardly speak." So, it's an incredible event that they throw. 2019, I do want to mention the narrators for this year. Now, as I said, Disneyland, it's a surprise. We are recording this before that actual date has happened, even though you're hearing it afterwards. So we still don't know as of right now who that will be. But at Epcot for this year, we got Ming-Na Wen, Neil Patrick Harris, Whoopi Goldberg, Isabella Rossellini, Cheetah Rivera, Gary Sinise, Pat Sajak, Warwick Davis, Stephen Curtis Chapman, Edward James Olmos, Marley Matlin, and Lisa Ling. So pretty nice lineup. So obviously each of these celebrities are doing multiple nights worth of shows. It's pretty cool. Do you have anybody you're looking super forward to seeing this year?
I think in general, I'm really excited for everybody. I'm just excited to see it. I actually just went last night in preparation for today. I saw Ming-Na, so she was great. She's super excited because she's got her hand in so many different Disney projects. So she was very happy to be there. She was excited that she was just named a Disney legend. So she was happy to share with that to the audience. So it was really, really nice to see that and just have her share the story. So really cool. But I wanted to go back to what you quoted, Howard Keel.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That's probably the number one thing that all the celebrities say at the end of their, or at the beginning of their time there. They're always just so blown away by the whole experience. And they always say, we're in the best seat of the house because you're surrounded by everything. You're seeing the audience, surrounded by the orchestra, surrounded by all of the choirs. It's just, I don't know. I can't describe it. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, you don't have to be the celebrity on stage doing the narration to feel that way. I honestly think anybody there attending is going to feel the way that Howard Keel described. So it's pretty incredible. It's an impressive show that they do every Christmas season. It's really wonderful. I do want to mention, I forget how many years back it was. It was probably a little more than I think, but I want to say it was about 5 or 6 years ago. Disneyland did actually try this tradition of doing it a month long, and it did not work as successfully. My guess is partially because of as I was talking about at the beginning, the logistics. At Epcot, they're in a stage, they're in a space that, is made for performance, whereas at Disneyland, it's in the middle of the park. It causes traffic jams and such. So, the month-long ceremony only lasted, I believe it was that 1 year at Disneyland. I will say one thing I really disliked about the month-long thing was, with it being just 2 days over a weekend, as I mentioned before, the whole procession was from Small World to the train station, so it went through the entire park, whereas when they were doing the month-long version, it just did Main Street. They basically came out at one end of Main Street. Yeah, so they cut it short when they did the whole month-long. So it didn't last for the whole run, but at the same time, I don't know, having it just those 2 nights makes it really extra special here at Disneyland, I would say, and it's not the most convenient, but definitely well worth it. And honestly, if they were to move it somewhere, like say the Fantasyland Theater, where they could have a stage and audience seats and everything, I don't think I would like it as much. I think that it's a really special location and it's a great tradition. So I certainly love it. Just curious, want to talk about maybe some tips for people who are planning on attending at Epcot this year, or do you have any tips or even just maybe warnings? Because it's an in-demand show. I know there's dinner packages, right?
Yes, definitely. If there is a narrator you want to see and you want to guarantee a seat, then I would say definitely sign up for a dinner package. I also understand it's not just dinner packages; they do breakfast packages as well.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I think. And I think they're pretty reasonable. I feel like I've looked into it. It's like $35 or something. So it's like you're getting your meal, which you would be paying not much less for, plus a guaranteed seat. So yeah, I honestly, even if I wasn't looking forward to a celebrity, if I was just looking forward to the show and on vacation, I would absolutely try and get that. Because otherwise, I've heard stories of people waiting in line, missing a show, and then not even getting into the second show. Like, it's crazy.
Yes, the lines can get pretty insane. I want to say when I saw Jonathan Groff, maybe that was one of the biggest crowds I've ever seen. He's only done it 1 year, but he was fantastic too. Now that I'm thinking about it, he was great. But definitely prepare yourself. Come with enough time. If you don't have a dinner package, definitely try and get in line. It's not guaranteed that you'll get a seat if you're in line, but if anything, they'll do the best to accommodate you, even if you have to stand in the back. So, and it's like that for everything. At Epcot America Garden Theater, if you come for food and wine, same thing with some popular musical acts over the summer and in the spring, and the Broadway shows in the winter. Well, it's a slower season, so I don't think you run into that as much. But for Candlelight especially, definitely come with enough time. Give yourself time to stand in line. So
I saw Hanson there with you.
You did, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, I don't think we waited that long for Hanson, but it was fun.
It was great.
That was during Food and Wine last year.
They come every year, yeah. So I think they were in October. Yeah, because you usually come then, right?
Usually October, yeah. This year I came in April, so it was a little different this year.
I saw you then, so it's been fun. See, it's true, guys. We're really friends.
So, are there any of we haven't really touched on the songs or the music in the show other than very generally. Are there any specific songs that really stand out to you or any you want to touch upon before we get going?
Yes. So, Rejoice with Exceeding Great Joy. That's probably my favorite song. If you want to get a feel for what Candlelight Processional is like, definitely check that song out. I believe they have a soundtrack. I don't know if it's in print anymore, but you can probably find it on the YouTube. You didn't hear that from me. But I did want to give a shout out to somebody. So if you're a regular seeing Candlelight at Walt Disney World, you've probably seen this person. Her name is Angela. She is the sign language interpreter for the show. There's a bunch of different ones, but Angela is usually there the most. But she is wonderful. She's divine. She is amazing. I actually worked with a woman who was deaf when I worked at Be Our Guest. And so we learned a little bit of sign language, and her interpreter said one of the key things to sign language is not so much with the hands, like that's very important, but expression on your face is a very key thing to sign language. And Angela's got it. Like some people might say she's overly dramatic, but if anything, it's like beautiful. Like she really gets in tune with the music, and she does so many different things. Like there's actually songs in different languages in the show, and she'll actually sign in those languages. I noticed it last night. She'll do a little indication. I don't know exactly what it meant, but I knew, like having done the show, I knew this was going to be another language. And if you study what she's doing, it's very different from the English words. So I think that was very impressive, like coming from watching the show. But yeah, Angela's great. Definitely, if you don't go to see a celebrity, go to see Angela because she is wonderful. She is such a lovely person as well, on top of being a great interpreter.
That's cool. And do they have a sign language interpreter for every performance, or is that like more like one show a night?
Yes, every performance, there's always an interpreter.
That's awesome.
I believe if you are deaf, you can request to be closer up front so you can see them. And they still, like sometimes there's a lot of different lighting changes in the show, but they'll still have, not like overly illuminated, but still make sure that you could see the interpreter.
That is fantastic. I love it. Gosh, I've never seen it at Epcot, and I hope to one of these years. I always say it, since I go traditionally in October, I need to plan, like, get there the day before Halloween and just stay 10 days, which will bring me into Christmas. That's not close enough to the processional, unfortunately, because that's more like Thanksgiving. But one of these years, I've got to check it out at Epcot because it's something, man.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Like definitely cool. Come.
Anything you want to add, or shall we get to some trivia?
I think we can get to some trivia.
All right, folks, I think that means it's trivia time! All right, Ruben, do you want to hit me with a trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
You go first.
Okay, I want to know, do you know who the new narrators were last year at Epcot? Who were the new narrators that were doing it?
Never done it before?
Yeah.
I believe Alili Carvalho was one.
Ali'i Carvalho, yep, Moana.
Oh gosh. I kind of want to scroll back and look at my notes, but I don't want to cheat.
No cheating.
Would John Stamos count? But he's done it in
No.
Disneyland, so.
Yeah, he was not a newbie, according to the list I saw.
Okay.
There were three others.
Bart Millard from
Bart Millard,
Mercy
yep.
Me.
Who is that?
He is the lead singer of Mercy Me.
Okay.
They're a Christian band. Is that it? Was it two? Or was there
two
another
more?
one? There's two more? I really have no idea.
One male, one female. Both actors.
Actors. I was going to say JC Velasquez. I think that's her name, but she's a singer. Or is she an actress, too?
Not JC.
Oh,
Helen
gosh.
Hunt.
Oh, Helen Hunt. That's right. Oh, Alfonso Ribeiro.
Yep, and Alfonso Ribeiro.
I remember the poster now. Thinking about.
So yeah, the four newbies last year were Helen Hunt, Alfonso Ribeiro, Bart Millard, and Auli'i Cravalho. And then at Disneyland last year, do you know who our narrator was last year?
I believe it was Mr. Chris Pratt. Correct.
It was Chris Pratt. So if you had the right spot on Main Street USA, meaning you were far enough back, you could see a tiny Chris Pratt up at the podium with the hideous Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout Tower behind
Lovely.
that.
How thematic.
Look at that.
They really thought about that with the staging, huh?
That worked out beautifully, didn't it?
Cool.
I love it. Anyway, what is your trivia question for me?
Okay, so I mentioned it briefly. So in the show, there are 3 other languages in addition to English that are sung in the show. Do you know them? And there's a bonus.
Latin, I would assume.
I'm sure there's some Latin words in there, but that's not. There's full verses and choruses in another language.
Oh gosh. Spanish?
Yes, correct.
Okay. German?
Yeah, with Silent Night.
Okay, and Spanish, German, English, and
You're on the right
Russian.
continent. No, not Russia. The last one is French. So they sing a song
French.
called
Okay.
Il est né. It means he is born. Really beautiful, fun little song. It's actually a traditional.
You know, that really is
song.
appropriate for World Showcase.
Yes, it's very worldly.
Wow. That's great. What was your other trivia question?
Well, in addition to this one, there's a bonus. There was a 4th language they used to do. I don't know what the song was, but they mentioned this in rehearsal. Do you happen to know what it was?
I know exactly what it was. You mentioned it already. Sign language. Oh, both.
That's very true, but no.
No, I have no idea what language
It was
would it
actually Italian.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I don't know what the song was, but I do have another question. Do you want the other question?
Sure.
Okay, so
Let's do more trivia.
Which Candlelight narrator usually starts their narration by saying, "This is a true story"?
Jodie Benson.
She might have, but no.
I'm gonna guess. I don't think this is right, but Whoopi Goldberg.
No, not Whoopi Goldberg. You're
No,
close.
who is it?
In the realm of Aaron Wallace, you're close.
Oh, Amy Grant.
Yes, correct. And sometimes, I did mention it briefly, sometimes she says, "This is the greatest story ever told" as well.
Okay, I was gonna say I remember you saying she said something, but I didn't think it was that. Okay, cool.
So yeah, I thought that
Very
was cool.
Well, Ruben, thank you so much for coming on Disney Coast to Coast. After years of asking you, you're finally done it. I think you did a fantastic job, so thank you.
Thank you. I hope I did good.
Did you want to plug anything, your social media or anything, or?
Oh, my Instagram, I guess. It's
Sure.
kind
Oh
of
yeah,
related.
you have an amazing Lego theme
Yes.
park Instagram account. Please plug that.
So what I basically do, I'm what they call an AFOL, AFOL, an adult fan of Lego. There's a huge community in the world.
That's
I
a
have no-
thing. I
It's a
did not know
thing,
that.
and there's TFOLs too for teen fans of Lego. But I started an Instagram account because I started taking Lego pictures from my personal account. I'm like, I don't want to annoy people with all these pictures of toys. But they're also collectibles too, to my fellow AFOLs. But what I do is I take them to the park and take fun pictures with them. So if you want to see those pictures, it's at Wibbly Wobbly Lego Wego. It's kind of a mouthful. Should I spell it out, I guess?
Yeah, at
WIBBLY WOBBLY LEGO So it looks like Wibbly Wobbly Lego We Go, but it's kind of a spin on a Doctor Who thing. So I might be changing.
You made it real easy for people.
I know, right?
No, it's such a fun account, and honestly, it's adorable because you do carry a backpack around the parks with these Lego inside, and you're like, it will be anywhere, and you're like, oh, that's perfect for the Sanderson sisters or whatever.
Yeah, I remember you
say,
were with me that one time.
Yeah. I said, oh, take it with the water wheel there.
At Belle's house.
And you even made a Jeff DePauli Lego.
I did to meet Lego Rick Moranis.
That's right.
Great.
For the season 6 premiere of Disney Coast to Coast, you did a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown photo thing, and you can go back in the Disney Coast to Coast Instagram and see those if you want. But yeah, you made a Jeff DePauli Lego to meet Lego Rick Moranis, which I love and appreciate. So that's fantastic. And folks, don't forget that the 2020 Disney Coast to Coast calendar is now available for purchase over at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. You can choose between a wall calendar to hang and display or a desk calendar, which comes in a case for easy display on your desktop. Either way, you'll be getting a bit of Disney magic to enjoy throughout the entire year. In addition, celebrate the openings of the Disney theme parks as each one's anniversary is notated on the calendar. It is now December and time is running out, so head over to DisneyCoastToCoast.com and order yours now for yourself or perhaps as a holiday gift for a loved one. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.
The views and opinions of today's guest do not reflect the opinion of the Walt Disney Company. His statements were his and his alone.